What power does a ruler have in relation to the law and the people, and when is a ruler a tyrant? Many believe that authority to govern has its roots in the government instead of the law. Such a view holds the government to be above either the law or the fountain and sole giver of the law. Such a view assumes that sovereign law originates from the government. This is blasphemy. Every man is a liar, and any law that deserves the name of a law cannot be deceitful. Some view rulers to have such prestige that their will must be done either in us or on us. However, this is a great untruth. Ahab's will was neither done by Elijah, for his commands were unjust, nor on Elijah, because the prophet fled, and we may lawfully flee from tyrants. Thus, Ahab was unable to murder Elijah. The ruler is not the only person with the power to make laws. If he could, then his power to inflict penalties without the volition of the people would be absolute, and this is unacceptable. Under such a dominion, the masters could command what they please under what penalty they please. The people, however, consent to be ruled under the penalty of laws because it is reasonable to expect that those who pursue wickedness should be punished. Therefore, the people must have some power in making these laws. Clearly, the lower magistrates and powers are judges, with the people as a collateral means to the primary end of government, the safety of the people. The people are not only the fountain from which the government springs, but also for the statutes enacted as laws. The ruler is still supreme, but in a derived sense, as the ministerial power for the execution of laws. The civil law is clear. The rule of the ruler has force only because the people have transferred their power to him. On behalf of the people, the lower magistrates may resist a tyrant. Theologians acknowledge that when Elijah rebuked Israel for attempting to worship both God and Baal, their princes permitted the priests of Baal to speak with the ruler. Was this not the very sin of the land, that they tolerated a ruler who worshipped idols? Thus the entire land was punished. Surely, passengers and crew may limit the power of a mad or sleepy sea captain, intent on running his ship against the rocks. Suppose a father, in a fit of rage, would set his own house on fire, burning himself and his children. In such a case, his fatherly rights are irrelevant, for neither God nor nature has given him such a prerogative. Instead, they should restrain him. Moreover, although it is incompatible to say that the people are to both command and obey, it is reasonable to expect that they may choose their magistrates in order. When this happens with greater frequency, fewer are the chances for envy and flattery that can lead to corruption. Some object that the representatives of the people, at best, claim equality with the ruler. From this idea it is reasoned, since an equal cannot judge an equal, the ruler is still above the law, the people, and the magistrates. There is a crucial difference here. Under ordinary circumstances, the deputies of the people and the ruler are equal in the power to make laws. However, the ruler's power derives from the people, whereas the magistrates are empowered in a direct sense by the people. This is important because should the ruler become tyrannical, the magistrates are responsible to use their fundamental power to restrain the oppressor. If any ruler were to be the sole supreme judge, without any sharers in power, then he would not be obliged to listen to the people and their emissaries. It would be impossible to limit acts of despotism, and in fact, even the greatest abominations become perfectly legitimate. A quote-unquote ruler, as an office for the execution of laws, is essential, but an individual who uses such an office to destroy a community and nation is not within his rightful prerogatives. There are times when the people will judge corruptly, or for selfish ends. Nevertheless, they are ultimately responsible to be the conscience of the ruler. God has made the three types of government that exist, yet each contains elements of the others. In a democracy, there are some first citizens, as in aristocracy, and those who preside over courts, resembling a ruler. Aristocracy has democratic elements, such as commissioners of the people, as well as leaders or ministers responsible for the execution of laws, again resembling a ruler. Under monarchy, there are always lower magistrates at a variety of levels whose functions resemble a mix of all three. No government is just that does not contain elements of all three. Absolute power in monarchy is tyranny. Undiluted democracy is sheer confusion. Untempered aristocracies result in warring factions. A limited ruler has respect for the public good without confusion from democracy, as well as the safety of separated and balanced powers from aristocracy. This circumstance holds tyranny at bay because power is not concentrated in one, but held by many. Each of these three modes of civil government contains blessings, which come from God, and blemishes that proceed from the corruption of humanity. Neither scripture nor reason warrants that any of these forms should be practiced without recourse to the other two. Historically, nearly every culture on earth has known the rule of a king at one time or another. These rulers were often viewed as an infallible living law. In this type of thinking, his will is reasonable and essentially present among all legislatures, courts, and lower magistrates. It is unlawful to disobey or resist a ruler, as a ruler, just as it is unlawful to disregard a good law. Occasionally, in the duty of his office, the actions of a ruler produce undue violence and even injustice. This is an occupational hazard because human beings will not and cannot obey the law through their own inner goodness. Since the fall into sin, the human race has become naturally violent. Just as doctors are necessary to cure illnesses, rulers are a remedy to a world of injustice and violence. Here is the problem. What recourse is there when a ruler becomes overzealous in his work or even corrupt? Such aberrations as violence and oppression are not what God intended to remove brutality. How can violence remove violence? Therefore, an unjust ruler is a contradiction to the genuine ordinance of God. We may resist the injustice of a ruler, and yet not resist the ruler personally. If a ruler casts off his original nature and becomes a tyrant, he is not from God, nor is the power he wields. Yet who shall be the judge between the ruler and the people, when the people accuse the ruler of being a tyrant? There is a court of necessity, just as there is a court of justice, which the people may turn to in an extremity, as if they had no ruler. Although aspects of law may seem abstract, tyranny is visible, obvious, and quickly discerned. If a ruler were to bring foreign troops into his realm, leading them, it will be abundantly clear that they have not come for a friendly visit, to salute the ruler, and depart in peace. The people have a natural affinity of conscience to be forewarned that a ruler is a tyrant. Thus, by nature, the people have a right to defend themselves. When tyranny is obscure, and its indications are small, the ruler can keep his place through manipulation and deceit. But tyranny cannot be obscured for long. This is the reason rulers should have limits on their power. If a ruler is in absolute and final power, even to the detriment of the country, he is only accountable to God, and his people have no remedy but prayer or flight. Although only God may put boundaries on the conscience of the ruler, that he may not oppress his subjects, this is a poor restraint because the ruler is only human. As a human, all rulers are sinful men inclined from the womb to all sin, and so this is no barrier to tyranny. There is no necessity for an explicit statement regarding the limits placed on a ruler by the people in a social compact. This operates in the same way as the marriage covenant. There is no need for a specific clause in the contract and oaths to prohibit one spouse from killing the other. Knowing all contingencies are not always possible, they must be addressed as they become apparent. If only one man or institution has all power to rule, the people would not be secure. Should only one man possess the sword of God, he may hypothetically use this official capacity to kill thousands of people and be accountable to no one save God. Thus, while some object, the disenfranchisement of the ruler is disruptive. The empowerment of a ruler can cause even greater disorder for the nation and the church. Throughout this issue, it is clear that the lives of the many are of higher regard than the security of one. Legal restraints placed on either the ruler or the people, if not backed by force, are not restraints but encouragements to do evil. There is no creature so irrational to imagine as a ruler with absolute power. Under no circumstances should a nation irrevocably do away with its own liberty and the liberty of its descendants and debase themselves as slaves before an absolute ruler who is nothing more than a sinful creature like his subjects. Exploring the basic difference between a ruler and a tyrant, we must observe that it is one thing to sin against an individual, another thing to sin against the state. David committed an act of murder when he had Uriah killed. However, he did not merit the punishment of a tyrant because he had not sinned against the state and the public good of the nation. A tyrant is one who habitually sins against the universal good of the subjects and state and subverts law. When the lower magistrates do not remove tyrants, God will often pursue them in wrath for violating faith with the people.